MGC Mesa students. They're working on their projects this whole semester, so they're really excited. They're working really hard to come support them, see what they've been working on. And then for the spring, just as like a preview of what you will get in the spring, we do have speakers locked in. So we'll have representatives we have someone from Hillmarch East, from R&D specifically to do a talk. We also have a freshwater biologist to come talk about work that she does for she's a co-chair for a conservation group. So that way she'll talk about what she does to protect the rivers. And we have a lot of diverse speakers. Our first speaker will be a psychology professor from our campus. So we're going to start with some of our own, which will be really exciting. And then we have maps. So we have a map talk coming up soon. That'll be November 15th about arboviruses. And then you will have just one more maps talk after that. And then of course we have our museum hour. So make sure you check out the events that we have there. And I'll let you take over. So Denise, you'll be doing introduction.
Yeah, I will be.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Enjoy, you guys. Hello. Oh, don't say it. Don't say it. Hey, that's fine.
Okay,
There you go.
okay, get this back up. Oh, I wasn't. Okay. And then I get to the slideshow. Okay, ready. Okay, I have to stand close to her so that the microphone can pick it up. So I am Denise Godbout, and I'm also on the science colloquium. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Stephanie Bolton, and she has two jobs really in Lodi, both dealing with sustainability. She's the Grower Research, Education, and Sustainability Director. And, oh, wait a minute. Okay.
That's right.
That's right. Okay. And she is also director of the Lodi Wine Grape Commission. So, and you notice I'm wearing my wine shirt today.
We love this.
Yes. Unfortunately, she didn't bring any wine. Darn. Okay. So her education, she went to high school in Wilmington, North Carolina, the other side of the country. I'm glad she's here. She did undergraduate work at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Chemistry major, education international studies minor, studied abroad for a semester in Brisbane, Australia, at the University of Queensland, and attended on Robert P. Holding and George Foster Hawkins scholarships. And she was a Pi Beta Pi sorority. I'm sorry, Pi Beta Pi sorority. She went to graduate school at the University of Georgia, food science and technology master's degree, plant pathology, Ph.D. for wine, taught a study abroad wine course in Tuscany for 5 years, which sounds really cool. And I will let her talk about how she got into the wine industry. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Denise. And if you all haven't gotten a tour from Denise of the museum, it is a real treat. So thank you for welcoming me so kindly with that nice tour of the Great Valley Museum. So thank you all so much for being here today and for the invitation to speak to you. Speaking to college students is one of my favorite things ever. I love your energy and your enthusiasm and your ideas. And I also love intergenerational learning, which is part of my job in Lodi. So we'll talk about some different things, but if there's anything that you want me to elaborate on, or if there's a question that pops up, just feel free to raise your hand. This is casual, not super formal, and we can go in a lot of directions with this. So who's been to Lodi? Yes. So you know how to say it. You're not saying Lodi. This is great. Awesome. We're just north of here. It's about a 45-minute drive on Highway 99 without any traffic. We actually have a really big, what's called an American Viticultural Area, an AVA. We grow more grapes in Lodi than Napa and Sonoma combined. We grow 1/5 of California's wine grapes. And most people don't know that, so you're smarter than most people already right now. Isn't that great? You're seeing our 7 sub-AVAs up on the screen right now, and we also grow 136 different wine grape varieties. And I'm here today because Tim Brown over here invited a group of his students up for a tour in Lodi, and we were real excited to take the viticulture class out to the vineyard, see what it looks like out there, give them some real-world viticulture experiences. My friend Madeline Colbert and I had a really good time with the students, and then now I'm back here today. So if that seems like something that would be interesting for you, your class, you and your friends, just let us know, okay? Real easy to find us. I work for the Lodi Wine Grape Commission, LodiWine.com, LodiGrowers.com. Our information is online and real easy to find. So I told you I really am into intergenerational learning. My job involves teaching growers, teaching farmers, teaching vineyard owners. And so just yesterday, we had a trunk disease workshop with Dr. Keith Eskelin. So a lot of times, scientists might like to come in and give PowerPoint presentations with lots of heavy slides and data. And then maybe the old school way was that made them feel smart and then us feel kind of dumb, and we thought they were the experts. Well, we're flipping that around. So our farmers are the experts. The scientists are experts in certain areas, and then we're trying to have everyone work together to actually deliver practical, real-world, applicable research. And it's going really, really well. And we would love to have more students involved on that. So you're welcome to come to any of our grower meetings. I have like 2 to 4 meetings a month, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll be in a room with people who own thousands of acres and have really big deal jobs, and people who might, have a half an acre, but they're really into regenerative farming or something like that. So you can find all of those meetings at LodiGrowers.com. And because we are a state-funded commission, which I'll kind of talk about a little bit, all of our meetings are free and open to the public. Oops. So I work for the Lodi Wine Grape Commission, as Denise said, and this is a commodity group. There's lots of these in California. Have you heard of these kind of things before? So there's the Rice Commission, the Cut Flower Commission, the Table Grape Commission. They're really neat because you're really focused on a certain crop, and then you are embedded in a community of people whose livelihoods depend on the success of that crop in terms of the health of the crop and the profitability. Especially if you can work for a regional organization like I do that's based in one location in Lodi, because there's also statewide organizations, right? So my job is like the farmers, 24/7. All my friends are farmers. We hang out all the time, and you really want to do a good job for the farmers because you see how that success translates into their kids being able to go to college and then being able to put food on the table. So you feel very financially invested, and this has been a super rewarding career path. So the mission of the Lodi Wine Grape Commission, who I work for, which was founded in 1991, is really to empower the growers to enhance their profitability through research, education, and promotion. And my part of the job is the research and education side. And then I also lead the grower communications and our sustainable wine growing program, which is called Lodi Rules. And in a nutshell, the whole program is in this binder right here. So we give these binders out free as outreach to growers. We're very grassroots. We have like 5 employees at the commission, but we represent 750 farmers. So we put these binders together ourselves to save money. So I'm going to pass this around, and you can take a peek through it and see what the Lodi Rules program is about if you're curious. Sometimes it's hard to talk about the Lodi Rules program in such an abstract way without seeing that binder. And then I also have some sprout plantable pencils. So you use the pencil, it's wooden, and then there's a seed in the bottom. So when you're done with using the pencil, you just stick it in the ground, and then this one's gonna sprout a chia seed. There's different seeds in there, and we have some stickers, so you're welcome to take those. I'll pass these around this way. So part of our job is marketing, but it's really education too. So it's fun. It's fun to talk the intricate scientific world of trunk disease like we did yesterday, but then also to design like cool wine boxes and sprout pencils and hydro flasks and do that creative art side. So that's kind of one of the things I like the best about this job is that you're working with people of all ages, you're out in the vineyard a lot, and then you're able to use that scientific mind and that creative mind for a common goal. Okay, so one other cool thing we have in Lodi, we have new vineyards that have just been planted a year ago, but then we have old historic vineyards that were planted over 100 years ago. This is our oldest vineyard. This is called Bechtold Vineyard. It's our most famous vineyard. There's a lot of really good Sanso wine that comes out of here. It's a light red French variety, and it was planted back in 1886. So if you think about it, those vines survived Prohibition. Wild, right? The growers had to get real creative to be able to keep those vines alive during Prohibition. They actually used wooden lug boxes and shipped grapes back east with a sign that said, this is for home winemaking only. And you were allowed, I think, like one lug box a family to use for home purposes during Prohibition. If you have never seen a really old vineyard, it really is like a magical experience. And Lodi has some of the oldest vineyards in the whole world and the highest concentration of older vineyards. Wendell Berry is considered one of the fathers of sustainable agriculture. And the way he defines it is a sustainable agriculture does not deplete people or soils. You are going to hear a lot of different green terms in the next 20 years or so. They get very confusing. There's organic, sustainable, regenerative, carbon neutral, carbon free, carbon friendly. There's all these different words. We went with a classic route when we developed our sustainable wine growing program for our growers. So you're not going to see a lot of these flashy words except for the name of the program, right? We chose the word sustainability. But inside the 150 plus farming practices that make up the program, we went really classic. So you're not going to have terms in there that talk about climate change or that, but the practices are reducing the impacts of the greenhouse gases on the climate change. If that makes sense. And I'm really proud of the farmers that put that program together because they worked with scientists to make sure that every single farming practice was measurable, was based on one of the three principles of sustainability, which is taking care of the environment, the people, or profitability, and that it was practical and economically feasible to implement. So I have a little bit video for you. We have a very small marketing budget for the Lodi Rules program, like $19,000 a year small. And so we decided one year on my birthday that we were going to hire a videographer and we were going to gather up a lot of the kids of the farmers and ask them just like, is this resonating, this whole sustainability thing that we're trying to do? Is it resonating to the next generation? So I literally sat like in a chair with a glass of wine and an index card with some questions and asked these kids questions about sustainability. And then we videotaped their answers. And luckily the guy who did the video is a really good videographer. Ready? And so your dad, he makes wine from grapes that are sustainable. Do you know what sustainable means? Can you take a guess?
Like they have juice in them. It's hard to describe it, but I know what it means.
Describe.
But it means that it lives for a long time.
Are you sustainable?
Yes.
And why are you sustainable?
I'm sustainable because I'm such a nice girl. I'm very serious about this.
Are you really serious about sustainability?
So about everything.
What does your dad do to help take care of the environment?
He helps the environment by helping people are making wine and stuff. He sprays the grapes to keep them healthy and not rotten, so that air doesn't smell so bad when you go by. He'll usually clean the huge barrels before he puts the wine back in them, And let's see, what else does he do?
Are you really proud of your dad?
Yeah,
Why are you proud of him?
because it's great. Next one. Really healthy. I don't know how people think one.
So being sustainable also means you're nice to people. So how do you think your dad is nice to the people that he works with?
Cause he doesn't yell a lot and he's not a really bossy person.
You know what sustainable means?
It means be nice to plants and animals and, area to them.
Maybe sustainable farmer means like trying to protect the environment whenever you can, not overusing, but trying to use the minimum amount, so that way you're not excessively spending or using and over polluting.
What do you think about sustainability?
Dots.
Dogs.
Sustainability.
What do you think about wine? Yeah, what kind of wine do you like?
Albarino.
Do you want to be a winemaker like your dad and have a farm?
I want to grow up and be like that.
Yeah, so the job has many facets, and sometimes it's committee meetings with all of these guys, but sometimes it's days like that where you're hanging out with the kids and you're just like, yes, this is what it's all about. And really the farmers in Lodi, what I've learned is more so than anything else, they do care about leaving a legacy for the next generation. And it's not only their children that they're thinking about, but they're really determined to make the world a better place for that next generation. So all of our efforts around our sustainable wine growing certification program, where the vineyards are certified sustainable on an annual basis, third-party audited, those decisions are governed by this committee here and myself. And so we try to be as, like I said, like grassroots and grounded in the real boots on the ground kind of farmer mentality, so that everything we do is more on that practical side and is meaningful. And that really has resonated across the globe. A lot of people ask us to speak about Lodi rules in other countries, and I'll show you some of that later when we talk about that. Right now, we've got over 72,000 acres across California, Washington State, and even in Israel enrolled in the program. And there's been over $14 million in grower bonuses paid for certified sustainable grapes, which means that money is going back in the pocket of the farmers. There's not many programs that can show these kind of numbers. And it is helping growers sell their grapes in a tight market right now as well. So there's 6 different chapters in the Lodi Rural Sustainability Program. There's human resources, business management, ecosystem, water, soil management, and then pest management is our largest chapter, because we started out really as an integrated pest management program back in 1992. Do you know what kind of owls these are? Barn owls. Yeah, so the barn owls are actually cheaper and more efficient at rodent control in the vineyard than the humans are. And we are really coming back to our roots with a lot of different things in farming. So we have the barn owls that are really productive for us in the vineyard ecosystem, and then we also are incorporating sheep into the vineyard, and I'll show you later how we're creatively using dogs in the vineyard as well. And none of this matters unless you can actually measure the value that a program like a sustainability certification is providing. So we have actually shown a measurable reduction in the use of high-risk pesticides over time, thanks to the Lodi Rules program, where every pesticide is evaluated for its risk to birds, bees, humans, etc., even earthworms now. We're also really engaged in keeping our beneficial insect population alive with our sustainability and our grower outreach. So it's been really fun to try and teach growers and children how to identify the different beneficial insects that exist in the vineyard, and then make sure we aren't accidentally killing those with some of the pesticides that we might be using, especially the insecticides. So whenever we ask our growers to go out and look for an insect pest, we're also asking them at the same time to go out and scout for the beneficial insect that might be helping reduce your population of the pest insect. And then we get to work with cool artists. This was a librarian up in Placerville, if you've ever been there, that created this artwork. You have to make things pretty to entice some people, right? It helps. So the Xerces Society, I don't know if you've ever had them speak. They would be a great speaker for this type of science colloquium. It's a society to protect invertebrates. They wrote a wonderful book that I highly recommend if you're into gardening or any type of agriculture. It's a real practical book full of photos and useful advice on farming with native beneficial insects. And right when you open it up, it gives you the statistic that the estimated value of pest control by these beneficial insects is estimated at $4.5 to $12 billion annually, which just is mind-blowing, right? The cost benefits that we're getting from those beneficial insects. Now, a lot of times they're not enough on their own in most of our farming systems to control a pest of your crop, but they do play an important role. We're also really excited about hedgerows in Lodi. So hedgerows are usually, ideally, native plant hedges that go alongside your farm edges. And they can serve a lot of different purposes. They can be a windbreak, they can help you with erosion control, they can help you with water infiltration, they can be a habitat for those beneficial insects, and then your cover crops between your vineyard rows can bring the insects from the hedgerows inside to the inner parts of your vineyard. And we have one farmer alone who's planted 4 miles of hedgerows, because we have some really big farmers in Lodi. Okay, I've got another video for you. This one, really geeking out on vine mealybugs. So that's your warning. And then they needed someone to narrate, so none of the growers wanted to do it. So sorry, you got me up there again.
In Lodi, California, where 1/5 of California's wine grapes are grown, 5 farmers, 2 scientists, and industry members came together to demonstrate the benefits of mealybug biocontrol in vineyards as part of a Western Fair grant project. The vine mealybug is an invasive insect that was unfortunately smuggled into California on suitcase wines. Bursting from the Coachella Valley, the vine mealybug has become a true problem now that we know that it spreads viruses such as lethal virus and viruses. Sometimes when a vine is infected with one or both of these viruses, it can lead to very reduced quality of wine grapes. It can lead to reduced yields. And when both viruses are infecting the vine at the same time on certain rootstocks, it can lead to the entire vine collapsing. And farmers across California are seeing whole patches of their vineyards collapse due to these viruses, which are spread by the vine mealybug.
Here in Lodi, mealybug is just about everywhere. I scout about 3,000 acres of fields, and there's pretty much not a field that I haven't been able to find mealybug in.
So in my own words, the vine mealybug is California's most important insect pest. It's the most damaging as far as the fact that it's a vector of leaf roll disease. The virus that we're most concerned about in this area is leaf roll 3, but we're also finding out that some of the viruses, A/B, virus F, is also vectored by mealybug. And that's where we're finding also that the combination of leaf roll 3 with the viruses is a combination that may be leading to the sudden vine collapse that we're seeing in the area.
Biocontrol really makes the vineyard exciting again. Having biocontrol as one of your vineyard management practice makes a lot of sense to me personally, because you're using all these chemicals and all these different insects are gaining resistance to these chemicals. They're not as effective. And when you use biocontrol, it's pretty hard to build up a resistance to something that's eating you.
So we have 2 beneficial insects that attack mealybug. The first is a parasitic wasp. It's not like a wasp that anybody would recognize. It's microscopic. It lays its eggs inside any stage of the mealybug except for the egg. It actually punctures the body, lays its eggs inside. That egg then hatches inside the body cavity of the mealybug, The young feeds on the inside of the mealybug and hatches out, kind of like Aliens, the movie where it just comes gushing out of the person. The second insect is called the mealybug destroyer. Its scientific name is Cryptolemus. They will consume 30 to 40, even up to 50 mealybugs in a day. And the cool thing about them is that they're camouflaged from the mealybug and camouflaged from the mealybug protectors, the ants. They look like a mealybug larvae. And so the combination of those two, the parasitic wasp and the mealybug destroyer, are very effective beneficial insects in a vineyard like this and in any vineyard. And we're using them because they can help bring the overall population of mealybug down without the requirement of pesticides, which in turn lengthens the time that a pesticide is useful, meaning the longevity of it, how many years we can use it, because the mealybugs aren't building up resistance to those chemistries. So you've got conventional growers that are benefiting from these beneficial insects, and you've got organic growers that are benefiting from these beneficial insects.
The thing that I think really raises our enthusiasm at first and helps us understand it is to be able to go out with someone who can identify both the good and bad pests that are already in your vineyard. I think that really opens a whole new world, like it does for the children.
I started using pheromone disruption about 6 years ago in our Bolton sow block. Since we've been doing it, we've been using the tags. First 2 years, we saw a little reduction, not much. 3 years, saw a lot more reduction in the mealybug population. And by year 6, it's really not much of an issue.
That's the benefit of the pheromone in the field, to try to eliminate those secondary spreads of infection because of mealybug, that you have that single landing of a mealybug and it stays just as a female mealybug, not laying eggs, not creating that whole secondary infection of virus out there.
What one farmer does on his or her vineyard definitely affects their neighbors' vineyards. If we can get more farmers to cooperatively use mealybug biocontrol in their vineyards, beneficial insects and pheromone mating disruption, then we all have a better chance of reducing viruses across our state and producing higher quality grapes and higher quality wine.
A year ago, I wasn't really sure that there was mating disruption, and I did some Google searches on it and finally was able, during one of our Western Star meetings, to ask Chris Storm about mating disruption, even just like who the supplier is and how do you put it out, and so we were able to order some. We have it out for this last 4 months of the year, and then we'll be putting it out again at the beginning of the growing season. It will be more effective apparently in the spring, when we can also be putting out together biocontrols, but they are pretty easy to put out, and for a small winery with a tasting room, they're very noticeable with the green tags, so they're a great way for our staff to also introduce sustainable farming.
These mealybugs continually are probably blown in by wind or by birds' equipment. Somehow get into your field and can be little tiny just salt and pepper infections throughout the field. The first thing is to get the virus out of the field. The second thing is to control the vector, being the mealybug.
Having a region-wide communication about mealybug problem is very beneficial. So that way we're all on board, we're all doing similar practices, we're all rotating the pesticides that we're using, we're all either using pheromone disruption or we're doing regional-wide biocontrol release, beneficial insect release. It just makes sense.
So we had a family field day here in Lodi to help introduce biocontrol, any gentler farming, get people interested, but also to introduce it to the children. And the kids are the ones that are so fired up. They don't really realize the implications for the earth, and they do love the drones and they do love looking at the bugs, and there's a lot of stuff to do. And I just think it gets families involved in talking about biocontrol and not just the conventional farming.
The economics is, it's a little bit more expensive, but what I have found is that the consumer is willing to support that additional effort in the vineyard. People are very concerned about what they're eating and drinking, as we all know. And this really helps fit into that program. And it's also just better for our total environment. I mean, my kids out here are pruning. They used to eat the grapes out here when they were 2 and 3 years old. They've grown up with this vineyard, and other generations will as well.
So that gives you an idea of kind of how we are trying to engage all the different generations in learning about a problem. And then hopefully we did the outreach side of it in a way that anyone can understand it. So the videos aren't just for our farmers, or educational tools aren't just for our farmers. We really want to make everything just so the average person off the street will understand what we're talking about. That's when you're really effective. And at the end, you saw that red book. So we also wrote a book, one of the first of its kind, for farmers to talk about these grapevine viruses and these vine mealybugs that are just devastating us right now. I mean, devastating us. And I get told all the time, Stephanie, thank you so much for writing that book. I understand it, you know, and that might be a 25-year-old or that might be an 85-year-old. And so my poor mother has to be my editor and read through some of this outreach material and watch these videos. And I'm like, okay, what didn't make sense? And, you know, that's why we try not to use a lot of acronyms or a lot of crazy vocabulary that's only we would understand, right? So that was all about the vine mealybug and the viruses. And the next level of that type of research is with canine detection. So we were lucky to have the opportunity to see if we could use dogs to detect those mealybugs and viruses in the vineyard. And I just wrapped up about a year of this research with a cool company called Canine Detection Services out of Fresno. And the spoiler alert is it works. So we were able to train 2 dogs for vine mealybugs and 2 dogs for leaf roll 3 virus detection. And the dogs can cover like 15 to 25 acres a day, way more than a human can do or a laboratory equipment. And the dogs excelled above our commercial laboratories in the accurate identification of leaf roll 3 virus. So we're going to try and use them to clean up our nurseries. I'm going down to the Sustainable Ag Expo next week to give a big presentation about this project. And we have the owner of the Canine Detection Services company, Lisa Finke, and a few of her dogs coming to Lodi tomorrow. If any of you feel like riding up and meeting the dogs, they'll be in Lodi around 11 a.m. At the Lodi Wine Grape Commission office. So that's real fun and real exciting. And you know, you're familiar how dogs can sense seizures in people before they happen. You know, these dogs are amazing. And so, like I said, we're having a lot of fun going back to some of these, what are called ancient technologies, instead of trying to mess everything up with our human minds, just kind of going back to a more natural way in some things and seeing how we can use these animals in synergy with what our challenges are today. We also did a project around these grapevine viruses with NASA. So I saw your last speaker was a NASA speaker. I used to teach at an astronomy camp. Did anyone go down to Idlewild, California ever and do that astro camp? What about Sally Ride Science Camp at Stanford? No? So I taught at both of those. So have a soft spot for astronomy, and NASA approached us one weekend saying, hey, we've got this money to use for agriculture. Can you get us a vineyard, you know, in the next couple of weeks to try out an aerial detection of grapevine viruses? So we said yes. And then I think it was September 13th, 2020, 113 degrees that day, but we were out there. And NASA overnighted some high-tech equipment. So that's me above the second end using, like very nervously, using a spectrophotometer that was owned by NASA to record some data for the project. We did a lot more too, but we wrote that note for them in the sand in the vineyard so that when they flew over with the aerial imagery equipment, they could get a little thank you. We also have groups come, so doing all of this like grower outreach and learning about sustainable wine growing and viruses and all these things in the vineyard. We have a lot of people visit us to learn about what we're doing in Lodi, and then we get to share and learn back from them. So this is a group of Uruguayan growers that came to visit us to learn about our sustainability program. And then they invited me to go down there for 10 days and learn all about their sustainable viticulture. And little did I know they were really going to work me hard, because we were doing 12-hour days in a tiny little car covering probably every single vineyard in Uruguay. And I'd be in the car with my host, and then they'd say, okay, we're pulling up to a grower meeting. There's 10 growers. They're probably going to be angry about this topic. Go. You know, you're just like, what? And then you get done with that, and they feed you a giant parrilla lunch with delicious meat, and then they take you and they say, okay, now we're going to this conference of all of the agronomists in the country of Uruguay, and you're the speaker for lunch. Go. You know, you're just kind of like, okay, just say yes a lot, right? And it ends up being a lot of fun. I also wanted to tell you about this opportunity. So this is for people ages about 25 to 45. There's this program called Nuffield International Farming Scholars. It's a pretty neat program. California has 3 scholars so far. I was their second one. And it's an international program where you get money that's been donated usually by bigger ag companies, but also by private donors. You get about $25,000 to travel the world and research a topic of importance to your local agricultural community. And they're looking for a California person now. So if you're interested, for 2025, so if you're interested in this program, I encourage you to Google it, or you can talk with me. This picture is from when we went to New Zealand. Someone had dumped an aquarium into this large river in the central Otago Valley, and the aquarium had some kind of seaweed in it. You know, your fish dies, instead of just flushing the fish and like flushing everything down the toilet, they dumped the aquarium contents into this river. And this dark spot here goes for miles and miles and miles. And it's that seaweed from that person who dumped, and they can't get rid of it. And they have a second invasive seaweed also that came on someone's, they call them wellies, but someone's fishing boots, like rain boots kind of, had come from Australia and come down to New Zealand on those boots. So really think twice before you like bring that apple home from another country, or you know, go from one farm with one pair of boots, and really wash them between. And we are not good at our biosecurity in America. I learned that from going to all these different countries. So even Indonesia, we went to Indonesia, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada on this one trip. And America was the easiest country just to walk on in through the airport security. The other ones had the dogs sniffing you. We would have like snacks. We'd get so nervous that we were going to go to jail or something in the other countries, but not in America. So we need to really be educated and do our part, because this is some bad stuff. Does anyone know what this is? What crop this is? Tea, yeah. This is a tea farm in Japan. Do you know we have a tea farm just north of here, just a little bit outside of Stockton? It's really, really cool. It's called Redwood Tea Estate, and they do a really cool tour, and it's a good example of a smaller scale farm that's done with a lot of thought and intention. The man who is growing the tea is a landscape architect, and it's a really good field trip. And that's, again, another part of that Nuffield program. I would have never gotten a tour of farming in Japan probably in my life if I hadn't been part of that program. So even though my whole world right now is viticulture, it really got me out of my own little siloed world of viticulture. And I learned about green onion farming and shrimp farming in Indonesia, banana farming in Australia, which was really, really cool. So another thing that we need help with is marketing of wine grapes. So a lot of our farmers, and again, I told you I work with 750 of them, even though they're growing grapes and selling grapes, they don't consider themselves a salesperson. Like, it's not on the radar. And you are a salesperson because you have a product that you're producing that you need to sell. But there's been so many times in our more recent history where it was really easy to sell your grapes. Right now, it's not that way at all. It's actually quite hard to sell your grapes if they're not under contract. And even if they are under contract, we're getting a lot of rejections from the wine grape buyers. Because in Lodi, every vineyard is not owned by a winery. It's mostly vineyards, and then you grow the grapes and you sell them to a wine grape buyer. And that could be a small buyer or a large buyer. Majority of the grapes go to the larger buyers. And the larger buyers don't need the grapes right now. So we're having to come up with creative ways to tell the growers, hey, I'm sorry that I have to be the one to tell you this, but you are a salesperson, and let's give you some tips on how to sell those grapes. So we're creating technical sheets for technical sales sheets for the vineyards, where it talks about the soil type and the planting date and the story behind the vineyard. And it's been really fun to work with the farmers to try and pull some of those stories out of them about the grandfather who picked the land for this reason. But unfortunately, not a lot of farmers are taking us up on the offer to help them create these text sheets. But I think we'll see that change as more grapes are in need of a home. So if you have any marketing skills, there's a job for you in the world of wine grapes for sure. And here's some more examples of how we're working with the next generation. So we're working with an organization called Lodi Appalachian Inclusion Collective and another organization called the Roots Fund, because we've realized that a lot of people that are right here in our Central Valley have no idea about a huge amount of jobs available in agriculture. So I always tell everyone that no matter what job you can think of, it can apply to the wine industry. You want to be an accountant? Every winery has an accountant. You want to be a lawyer? Definitely need lawyers in the wine industry. You want to be a graphic designer? We use tons of graphic designers. So you can try me if you think you have a job that I can't connect back to the wine industry, but I haven't got one yet. So if you're interested at all, you're kind of maybe just not sure what you want to do, and you don't have to love wine either. So there's this whole world of non-alcoholic wine, of grape juice, of grape soda, all these other things you can use, agritourism in the wine industry, even if you don't like wine. And then I wanted to leave you with this advice. When I was trying to decide what I wanted to do for a career, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia. It was about 2009, so I had graduated college and I was having a very fun time living like kind of a easy lifestyle, I guess you could say. I was working as a nanny and a personal assistant and going out a lot with my friends. And I was like, I know I want to go to grad school, but I'm not sure what I want to do. As a career path, I have this degree in chemistry, and I'm teaching the kids I nanny for about H2O and NaCl, but that's not really cutting it. So I was trying to figure out how to use my science background for something that would be a real sustainable career option. And I was dating a musician, and he took me to a gig with him out in the mountains of North Georgia. And it was at a winery, and I remember just playing with the kids in the vineyard and catching fireflies and just having this magical time in the vineyard. And that's where I fell in love with vineyards. And he said, Stephanie, why don't you do one thing every day to get towards your goal of having a career in a vineyard? Because I knew I wanted a vineyard in my life. And he was like, duh, chemistry, winemaking, vineyards. I hadn't thought of that because when I went to school, they don't say, oh, go have a career in the wine industry. Yet, but we'd love to have you in agriculture and in the wine industry. Thank you.
Any questions?
I just want to challenge you for a career.
Yes.